In April 1942, the Germans ordered us to leave our houses and go to a ghetto assigned for the Jews. So the ghetto was just one street. It was barbed wire all around with one place just that you could go in and out. And the Judenrat called my father and said that we have to assign room for the Jews because they gave to the Jews a place where the Polish people used to live years ago. And those were small houses and were on the end of the city. It wasn't a perfect neighborhood, but this is what they assigned. And they gave the Jewish houses, they gave to those Polish people. My father said, no, I don't want to be on this. I don't want to tell people where they have to live. You just give me for my family and you do it. Now, this I can't help you. We didn't have wagons and horses. The Polish people had it, the peasants. So we had to hire this. And we had to put in how much we could. My father and my mother gave the good furniture that we have. She gave it to somebody in town, to a Polish woman. She was a very nice woman, Mrs. Gorbachova. And her husband was my teacher in Russian language and Russian literature. They gave the bedroom, they gave her, we had a living room, a dining, gave her everything because what they assigned for us to stay, there was no room, there was room just for 2 beds to put in and a little tiny table. We were in this one bedroom and a kitchen. My father, my mother, and the 2 of us, we had this one tiny room. And in the kitchen was my aunt, my 2 cousins, and this, I think, one woman, a widow, I think this one woman. In the ghetto, first of all, you had to work every day. They told the Judenrat, today we need so many people to do this and this. And you had to do it. Then you had to bribe them, you had to make boots for them, you made other things. We thought maybe this way they would be nicer. So I want to show you how my father was. They came to the Judenrat. They wanted 4 coats, and my mother had a 4 coat. There is a few more in the town that had. So nobody was bringing. So my father said to my mother, you go and bring the 4 coat. She was the first one to bring the 4 coat. And all the others came and they gave too. My father thought that if you give the Germans whatever they want, if you do what they want, maybe they'll be a little nicer to us. But it was not the case. They were as rude as ever. The Germans used to pick the Jews for certain jobs to work, and if they needed people, they went to the Judenrat and they told them, tomorrow I need 10 or 15 people to do this certain work. If my father was sometimes chosen among the people who had to work, I used to go instead of him because they usually beat up the men, and me as a 14-year-old, we thought they wouldn't touch. And the life was going on, miserable life, because every time they came in, they beat up this one, they took this one, they shot this one. Every time there was something, cut the beard with the flesh of this one. You know, every time was something, every day was something. What they did, it's undescribable, it's impossible to write, and no matter how much I'll tell you, it's impossible. It's impossible, there's not enough words to explain. The fear, when I saw the German, that's why I'm afraid now. It's terrible. Especially when you're very young. And the older too, my poor father, he was so scared of them. He was so afraid. In the ghetto, my hobby was that I collected boxes from matches, and I put some gold wrapping, like from a chocolate if I had, or other places, and I made like a little house. One day the Germans came, as they usually did, to look in the Jewish houses, and one of them, the Poznańczyk, we call him the Poznańczyk because he was from Poznań, from the city of Poznań, the Volksdeutsch, and he opened every little box what I made the house from. He wanted to find some good jewelry or coins. I don't know what he was looking for, but he found nothing. There was nothing there. I was scared, but I should have said to him, take it. Take the whole thing. The Germans didn't like to come into a house that you're sick. They were afraid. So a lot of things was done, like you lay down in bed, you put a schmat around your forehead, and you put things that smell, like from the pharmacy something, alcohol, other things, smelly things around, so they didn't go into this room. So you were safe there, and you could put the valuable things, and the dirty clothes, they wouldn't touch it. My mother put in the dirty clothes things like a tablecloth or things that you can sell for food. So we found out how to hide a little. In the ghetto, it wasn't too much hunger, you know. We had things, and my father used to say, if I live to give away for a chicken or for a piece of bread, the last possession that I have, it means we'll be alive. He didn't care if a Polish peasant came, because the ghetto was easy to come and go. So if they came and they wanted something, he said, okay, give me something for it. So this is how we survived. And the rest, some of the Jews were smuggling. They took their life in their hands, and they were going smuggling and go to a different town and buying things. But my father didn't want. My father was smart. He knew, you'll never eat this up. You'll never use it up. The main street from the ghetto was not paved. It was dirt. And this was a good thing because the Jews planted potatoes there. So in case we'll be alive till next winter, we'll have something to eat. My mother prepared herself. She says, everybody is buying potatoes for the winter. Let's buy some potatoes. My father, don't worry. He knew that we're not going to live for too long. We had discussions about this. If something happens, so my father said that if you run away, even the Polish people will keep you a day or two and they'll tell you go. And he knew. And so me and my cousin Esther, we used to say, so what do you mean? We'll just sit down and let them shoot us? We'll run away. We said, we'll run. We will not let them shoot us. I would never go to the Germans. You know, we were joking, like laughing about it, but it was real. People used to come running from different places, like closer to the Russian border. It came 5 people, or came 10 people the most. I don't know, it wouldn't come more than 10 people. Everybody in the ghetto took somebody who ran away and gave them how much food we had. We shared with him because they were telling us terrible stories, what was happening. One man, I remember, came with his boy, and he said, they took my wife and the rest of the children, and they made ditches and they shot them. We couldn't believe it. We said, oh, what is he talking? What is he talking? I remember he was eating lunch in my house, and he was explaining. And my father said, no, it cannot be, it cannot be, it cannot be. But he was afraid of them. He knew they capable of doing terrible things to the Jews. He knew it. Nobody could believe that what people can do to people, to take men, women, and children and just gas them. So we couldn't believe, really. And my father, he used to joke, people came to us, friends, he said, oh, in Treblinka they say there is a machine that they put you there and they grind you up. What will I do with my glasses? When we heard those stories, we knew something is going to happen eventually. So we said, you know what, maybe there should be few Jews at night standing in the street watching the ghetto in case something all over, maybe they're doing it special. We didn't think that they'll do it in broad daylight, but they didn't have ammunition, they didn't have anything, they couldn't do anything. And nothing happened, nothing happened. But one day, this was the Friday before the Monday that they liquidated the ghetto. The Germans came from house to house. This was not a new thing. Anytime they wanted, they went from house to house. They looked, whatever they liked. They took it, they sent it to Germany for their wives. But I think now, come to think about it, that Monday they will liquidate the ghetto already. They were looking more or less how many people they have here to take. This is my opinion, you know, and I think it's right. So they came, and I was standing in the kitchen, and one German, the commandant, I remember how he looked, tall, handsome. He put a hand on my shoulder. I was blunt and I was nice looking. And he said to me, "Wie alt bist du? How old are you?" So I told him, I think 14. Or maybe I told him special. My mother always told me, tell them older. Maybe I told him 15, I don't remember. And he made like this. And he thought probably to himself, soon he wouldn't be here anymore. This was an unusual thing, that a German should put a hand on a Jewish kid. My father said, oh, see, maybe the children they wouldn't kill, because look, he put a hand on her. He liked her. But it's not true. They didn't have pity. My father thought that if something happens to him and my mother, me and my sister should go to America because we have family there. My mother's parents, my grandparents, lived in Connecticut, in Colchester, Connecticut. My father told me a few times to repeat the address. He wanted to know if I know where my grandparents lived. I had to repeat after him that my grandparents are Rabbi Levin in Colchester, Con. I didn't know Connecticut. Pleasant Street. It was supposed to be Pleasant Street, but it's spelled in Polish like Pleasant. So he said Pleasant Street, and in America. So you have to remember this. You should tell me again and again, remember. One day we heard rumors that the Germans ordered horse and buggies for Monday morning to be at the marketplace. So we knew, who is it for? For us, to take to the station. The station was in Sympathetic, about 18 kilometers from my town, from Drogheda. So my father said to my mother, take the children and go to the village Sieniowice, which was 3 kilometers from my town. My father arranged with somebody, his name was Kalinowski, to let us stay in case something happens. He said to my mother, you go with the children. If something happens, I'll come out. I'll run out. But my mother had always this on her conscience, that if she wouldn't go with us because of us, he would come out too. But she agreed. This was Thursday, I think. Friday, the Germans went from house to house, and Sunday, they were supposed to be the horse and buggies on the marketplace. Sunday was safer for us to get out of the ghetto because most of the people, the Christian people, were in church, so nobody would recognize us. And we went out, my mother, myself, my cousin Esther, and my father's sister. We just picked up the barbed wire, and everyone, single, we just got out. The ghetto wasn't well guarded. It had barbed wire, but you could pick it up and crawl out, and it wasn't electrocuted or something. So it was easy. Nobody was watching us. After we got out of the ghetto, I realized that I don't have my father's picture. I knew my mother is with me, but my father, I didn't know if I'll ever see him again. So I sneaked back to the ghetto to the house and took the picture of my father and sneaked out again. And I had luck not be discovered by the Germans. I carried this picture all through the war, and I still have it today. We went to this village that my father prearranged before, and my mother didn't know how to go there because we lived in Warsaw. We were a few years just there. So I remember my aunt, who was born in Drohichin and knew every village, she took us there. She told us not to go in the house yet. It was dark already. And she told us, you sit here, I'll go tell him that you're here. And before we turned around, she left. We didn't say goodbye even. And she went back to Drohichin. She went back to my father and the two orphans, cousins that I had. We didn't know at that time that we'll never see them again. Mr. Kalinowski gave us some hot milk to drink, I remember, and he didn't have room, and we slept on the floor. We slept over the night, thinking that maybe we'll go back. But early in the morning, since it was just 3 kilometers, we heard shooting. And the Polish man, Kalinowski, came over and he said, the ghetto is surrounded already, and whoever escapes, they're shooting. And I can't keep you, I want you to get out. I knew they liquidating the ghetto. Liquidating means that they take all the Jews from the ghetto and send them to a death camp, to a gas chamber. Most of the Jews from my town perished in the death camp, Treblinka. Later on, my mother met a man by the name of Luza, and he jumped from the train going to Treblinka. He came to the same place where we were hiding, and she had the chance to talk to him and ask him about my father. He told my mother, yes, I asked your husband to jump with me, but he said, my wife and my children are probably dead already. So what's the use? I'll go where my brothers and sisters are going. So we were 4 people. My mother, I was the oldest. I was, I think, 14. My sister was 11, and my cousin was 13. We were walking. It was no woods very close, so it was like in the field. And we saw other people already running. One woman with her 2 children that I knew, another one, and she said to my mother, come up, we'll go together. And I said to my mother, it's no good, don't go together, tell her to go away. It's too many people. And this woman went back, I know later, I knew that this woman went back to Drohichin, and she didn't know where to go. But my mother said to us, which was a good idea, she said, every one of you go, there were bushes like, and every one of you go and sit in these bushes and put some greens, whatever was left, it was already November, beginning of November, and you sit there till it gets night. So this is what we did. It came in the evening already. I come out, my cousin comes out, my mother calls. My sister, we call Dorothy, Dvojke. She doesn't answer. She fell asleep. We looked in the bushes. She fell asleep in the bushes. We heard shooting, constant shooting, constant shooting. My mother told us, sit in the bush, don't talk, don't sneeze, be quiet. I was wearing a coat, a heavy coat. And when I looked out, I saw Germans. I didn't see, they weren't there, but I saw it in my imagination. And I threw down the coat and I started to run. And my mother picked up the coat. He says, you'll freeze, put on the coat. I saw them, but they weren't there. This was the first 3 days that we ran out of the ghetto. In the daytime, we didn't eat, but in the evening, my mother went to this man, his name is Kalinowski, he promised my father that he'll help us. And Kalinowski gave us hot milk. My mother took it to the bushes where we were sitting and gave us the hot milk because it was very cold already. It was November 5th or 6th. And it started already to snow. Then all of a sudden, we got scared because a man comes over. We didn't know who he is. And he said to us, "How long do you think you can sit here in the bushes? It's snowing already. If you have money, I can make a hiding place for you." So my mother says, "Where are you? Where do we go?" The man's name was Chapko. So he said, Chapko says, "You go straight." He showed us, with this road, you go straight, you'll find it. So we started to go straight. We go, we can't find it. It was almost daytime where we found the place. As soon as we came in, we saw some more Jews from my town. He had maybe 10 Jews already. And he started to say, "For washing hair, you'll have to give me $5. For going to the toilet outside, you'll give me $5. Everything somehow was $5. And it was American money he wanted, dollars, not Polish money. So my mother had some. So she said, "Okay, we'll give you whatever I have. Make the place for us." Chapko said to the Jewish men, "You have to dig a hole, a hiding place for all of you here. But you have to do it before daytime. And you can do it on my property, not far from my house. In the evening, you can come in, we'll give you something to eat." And they started working on it. It was hard to dig because it was cold then. It was winter time already. And it was 10 people, more than 10 people. And it was almost daytime. So it was very shallow. It was so shallow that you could just lay straight. You can't sit down, you can't lay on the side. And those men said to my mother, she should go first. She says, "Oh, Kinder, oh, children, I can't stay there, I feel I'm choking." And I remember I said, go in." And she went in, then I went, my sister, all of us in the hall. We were sitting like against the end of the place, and all our legs were in the middle. This is how we were sitting. And 10 people, so sometimes my legs were, I couldn't feel them. And there was one man, a very common person, he was a shoemaker, and every time he was cursing, he said to us, "Keep your legs there." He used to do it. And I said to him, "I can't, let me take out for a few minutes." All right, but we survived this. We were hiding in this place for a few days, but it wasn't good. Eventually it was snowing more and more. And when you had to go out at night to get the food or something else, you can see the footprints, 10 or 15 people walking. They would kill us all. So he said, "Chapko, let's make the hiding place in the barn." It's not really a barn because it was attached to the house. He wasn't a rich man, this Chapko. He didn't have cows or horses. The hiding place in the barn was like also a hole that you let yourself down and you cover with a plank of wood and some straw on top of it. You try to do it as much as you can to make it that even if they come sometimes, they wouldn't find you. The man took $5 from everybody. My mother gave him $5 for whatever she had money. Then she didn't have any more money. Later on, we gave him my mother's engagement ring. When my father gave to my mother, we gave him, and he was looking 100 times. "Is it real?" he said, "or it's not real?" So my mother said, "Sure, it's real." One day that we stayed hidden there was 5 Jews that had a place they dug up in the middle of the field, and the Germans found out. And they killed them near the house of this Chapko. And they told him to come out and bury them. I knew them. One was Zelig. He used to go to school with me. And Chapko said he begged me to help him. He was still alive. While this happened, Mrs. Chapko came over to our hiding place and said, "That's it, we finished. You finished and we are finished." Later in the evening, when they buried them already and everything was finished, Chapko, he said to all the people, I don't want you to stay here. But we didn't know that this was just, he didn't want us to stay anymore because he didn't need kids, although we were very good, quiet and everything. And the rest of the Jews stayed. You know, sometimes among the Jews, they weren't right. The people that we stayed with, they were also hiding, and I knew them. We all knew them. But they saw that my mother was a woman with 3 children, and it was much easier when you have manpower. They can do things, they can dig, we couldn't do anything. We didn't know about it, but they told the man Chapko, "Tell us to go. We are 4 people, we don't do anything, let us go." When he told us to go, we didn't know what to do. Then we said, you know what, we'll go to this Mrs. Bronchikova, her name. My father used to work with her during the Russian occupation, when the Russians were in the stores. And they were very friendly. My mother was friendly with them. And my mother wrote even before this, she wrote to her a letter, and I remember what she said. "I appeal to your conscience," she said, "to help us." In Polish, apeluję do pani sumienia. I remember like now. So we didn't know even how to go. And this was just maybe 2 kilometers from Drogheda, but we didn't know. So we knew this man that we came the first night. We said to him, "Please, just show us how to go, please." And I had gloves, I remember, very fancy, nice gloves. I took off my gloves. I said, "Here is the gloves. Show us just how to go." He said, "Go straight." You know, they didn't know how to explain. They said, "Go straight." And it was cold already, so the ground was frozen, you know. So we walk, and then we see something on the ground, like it lights something. Must have been a stone. And so we thought that maybe the Germans are laying there with lights. So we started running back to this man's house, you know, who told us that we have to go. On the way, running back, Esther, my cousin, she fell on the ground, and because it was so hard, her whole cheek was bloody. We come back, we were so upset, because we take a look, all the other Jews that we stayed with, they are staying there and drinking milk, and us, they told to go. So I remember one man was there, what was his name? Pensak. I remember his name, was a tall man. And Esther said, "Oh, so this is what you did. You put us out to be killed and you saving yourself." And you know what she says? "If the Germans find us, I'm going to tell them that you are here." So he gave her such a smack in this bad cheek that she cried and she had swollen like this. But nothing helped. He didn't want us. So we had to go. We said, "We'll take a chance. We'll go to the town. If we find it, we find it." Because this one didn't want to tell us. This one didn't want to have us. So we'll go. And we had to know how to go there, because they used to have at night Polish people who watched who comes into town. So we didn't know where the point is, where they're looking for. So we said we go single. We were sneaking in one by one, not all of us together. And we came to Bronchikova, We came into her house, all four of us. My mother says, do with us what you want. You want to take us to the Germans? We have no place to go. If it gets light and we stay outside, they'll kill us. We don't know anybody. We don't know even how to go in the villages. Do with us what you want. But for the sake that you were friends and everything, have pity, save us. And she said, okay, I'm going to tell my sister-in-law, who is a widow, and she has 2 children. My husband, she said, will go there, make a hiding place for you. He had to go and dig it up, so she let us stay for a day. She probably felt bad because she worked with my father for 2 years. Before we knew that something will happen, we put good things, that we had valuable things, in valises, and we put it on the attic in the ghetto. And on top we put all the wood and other things that nobody could find it. It was camouflage. So we told this Bronchikova, we said, you know, for your sister-in-law, take the valises, she can sell it, and she can have, she can live with her 2 children, and she can keep us. Bronchikova's husband went to the village called Stadniki, and we had to smuggle out from Drohichin, with the main highway. We had to go, it's 18 kilometers. So my mother and my sister went on the wagon, the horse and buggy. Myself and my cousin, he told us to walk in a certain place and he'll be there to meet us. And so we did, but it was a very dangerous thing to do. He made, it was like a barn with divided like this, and it has 2 pigs on this side, and on this side was wood, was empty. So he just picked up those planks of wood, and he made a hole, which was also very little. But we can sit down. We didn't have to lay. We can sit down. But it was so small that my mother, my sister, and my cousin slept straight, and I had to sleep where their legs were, the other way. This saved our life, because this was like a few months we stayed there. And this was a very good thing for us. She brought us food. When she brought for the pigs food, she brought for us some food. And in this period, from November till about April, a lot of people got killed. You could hear constant shooting. They were continuing, constantly looking for people, because the women and the children from the ghetto, almost all of them went out the day before, but they didn't survive because they had no place to stay. When the Germans started hunting for the Jews, some Polish people helped in this job. Not all, but some helped. There was one incident when a Jewish man from Przemyatycz, who used to be a cattle dealer and brought the cows to the market, he was hiding someplace, and some of the Polish people found out. They took him out from there, and they did the same to him as he did to the cows. They put a chain around his neck and connected it to the wagon, to the horse and buggy, and this is the way they took him to the Germans to be killed. Another example is when the seamstress of my town, her name was Rivka, and she had 2 little children, Manya and Edith. And when the Germans started to kill the Jews, she ran away from the ghetto with the 2 children. The Germans caught her, and she started to beg them, let my children live. They were 10 and 8 years old. Kill me, but let my children live. So he said to the older girl, Edith, he said to her, run. And she ran, and the Germans shot her while she was running. I know the story because the people from the village told us. There was another one came to my mind, Elle Bloch. Bloch, they were related to us because my aunt was married to his brother. So when they caught him, his wife, 2 children, and his mother, they called him in the village and they were going to shoot them. They put it down and said they're going to shoot them. And he said to them, okay, before you shoot me, let me just smoke a cigarette. So those murderers, they let them do it. So he smoked the cigarettes and they shot the whole family. Oh, there's so many that I know. But we were the lucky ones. We had a place to stay. We stayed in this hiding place by Mrs. Yurchukova for 6 months. The conditions were terrible, but it was good. It saved us. If you had a hiding place, you weren't just in the field there. You survived. There was no light. She gave us an inkwell with kerosene inside, it's not a candle, but like a candle. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing to do. So even to talk, we have to whisper, because this wasn't one house, like some houses were just one house, far away other houses. This was in the village. And there was one neighbor, she told me, on the right side is not a good neighbor, and the left side is a good neighbor, so we don't have to worry. And when we had to sneeze, we used to rub our nose. I learned this, when you sneeze and you rub your nose like this, you don't make it loud. Sometimes I used to look in the day, I saw chickens outside, I envied them. I saw horses outside, but what can you do? We knew, we were thanking God that we're alive. We sat like this all day. My mother was sitting and rocking all day and crying about my father. We didn't even cry that we lost. We didn't even cry because we had so much trouble to find how to survive that we didn't have time to cry about the family that was lost. It looked like my mother was in a shock. She was all night, she was sitting and shaking and shaking and shaking. She didn't sleep at all. I, at 14, became the mother, and my mother became the baby. I used to tell her, no, this is no good to do, this is good to do. Even when we had to go to get something in town, she wanted to go. I said, no, you cannot go, they'll shoot you. You look very Jewish. And she listened to me. You know, at night, you have to go, like to a toilet. There was no toilet, we just sat there on the pig side. And we did whatever we had to do. And we didn't brush, we didn't wash our face, we didn't brush our teeth. After a while, there was flea and lice in the clothes. And this was our entertainment, to kill the lice. It's just terrible. And the food, we were always hungry. So when she brought the pot of, I believe she made a kasha. So she brought it, we had 1 spoon. And everybody took a spoon, everybody ate 1 spoon in order not to cheat each other. Everybody was so hungry. And all of a sudden, my mother, when it was very little left, my mother said, I'm not hungry. I said, how could you not be hungry? Now that I was a mother, I understand it. She was hungry, but she couldn't take it that we're so hungry, so she told us to eat better than she. My mother used to talk, if we live through the war, I'll make you to eat. And she started to tell us what she made us to eat. So I said, please stop, because I'm dying from hunger already. Please stop. Funny thing, nobody complained. Nobody complained. If you had a place where to hide, it's like now you would live in Queen Elizabeth's palace. If you had something, I didn't care, has lice or has fleas, it didn't bother. But you have something that's safe, was good. We stayed in this place from middle of December, I think, till April. In April, she told us to go. She was afraid that the bad neighbor knows that she keeps Jews. So she said, it's dangerous now, so you'll have to go. And she was afraid for us, and she was afraid for her. So my mother suggested that we better split, not to go 4 people. Nobody will let in 4 people and give food for 4 people. So my mother and my sister went together because my sister was the youngest. Then my cousin Esther, she went separate. Me, she told me that my father knew somebody, his name was Czarniecki. In 1918, when the Germans were, my father was a secretary to the mayor of Drohichin, and he spoke German. So he helped this man, I don't know in what, but he helped him. And she said to me, you go to him, or there is another one, his name is Krakówka, and you could go to him, because my father helped him too. The Germans used to take some Polish girls to do their housework in Germany. Some Jews could survive blending in among them and pretending to be Christian, but you needed to have the right papers. I was blonde, light skin, light eyes, and I spoke a good Polish, so my mother thought it will be easier to pass as a Polish girl. And she hoped that Czarniecki or Krakówka will be able to make those papers that are necessary to go there. So I started to go, and on the way, I didn't know where to Krakówka, so on the way I used to ask people, where is Mr. Krakówka, where is his house? And this was wrong, very wrong. I shouldn't have asked for anything, because they can go and tell that I am at Krakówka's place. So I came to, not Czarniecki, but I came to Krakówka. And he was a very nice man, but his son, one of his sons, was in the AK against the Jews, you know. The AK, the Armia Krajowa, in Polish means the army of the land. And they were fighting for a free Poland. At the beginning, the AK was good with the Jews because they both had the same enemies, the Germans. There is even a song together. They used to sing a song. Siekieromotka, piłka, szklanka w nocy, Helen w dzień, łapanka, siekieromotka, piłka, gwoźdź. My już mamy tego dość. Czy koreją, czy zonleją, wekciu może tamten wiej. Czy to w krzaki, czy też w kot. Polska prędko będzie. They said that Poland will be free. But later on, they started to kill the Jews. They wanted a clean Poland without Jews, just Polish. And a few people that I know were killed by the AK. Before the end of the war, it was almost the end of the war. They could have lived, but they killed them. So we had to be very careful of them. When I came to Krakówka, when I got there, I found a few Jews staying there and hiding. That he kept them, he let them stay, Krakówka. But I didn't stay because I really didn't trust the son that belonged to the AK. But he was nice, he gave me to eat, and I told him, can you make for me the papers? He said, I can't do it anymore. They don't, first of all, he says, they don't take any more already. They took already everybody, and I can't do it. After I left Krakówka, I didn't know where to go, but then I remembered that somebody by the name Wilkowski came in the ghetto, and my mother showed them her coat, a new coat. So she says she likes it. She'll give us for the coat eggs or butter. I don't remember how many or what, but this is what happened. They gave us some food for this. So I remembered, and I said, now I'll try to go to this Wilkowski. And again, I asked on the street, in the village, I asked, where Wilkowski? How do I go? I didn't know anything. So they told me, and I went there, and he had a daughter that was 16 years old, and she liked me. As soon as I came in, she said, come in, come in. And they let me stay in the barn for a little while. And when they got tired of me, they didn't want me anymore, Yaja, the daughter, she says, don't worry, you go in the barn, I'll bring you food. They had a son who was a young boy, maybe 12 years old. And he constantly said to me, I'm going to tell the Germans that you're here. I'm going to tell the Germans that you're here. His name is Maniek. He always scared me. He said, I'm going to tell the Germans. But the father of his father and Yaja's father said to me, teach him a little Polish. He doesn't know how to read or write. He's terrible. So I said, okay. So I didn't know myself too much, but I did the best I could. But then my mother and my sister didn't have a place. And I brought them to Milkowski. And then it didn't take long. He said, it's too many people. Get out, all of you. Me, one person was much easier. Much easier. He used to tell me, what happens if the Germans come and you in the house? And I told him, I'll go sideways and I'll go in the field. So he said, remember, you have to get out. So I said, okay. I understand that he was thinking, how 3 people, 4 people, how will they go? They'll know right away. And it's dangerous for them too. 2 ways they had dangerous. One, the Germans could kill them. And you know, the second thing, the Polish people from the village, they used to shave the heads of the women who kept Jewish people. They shaved off to show that they are hiding Jews. See, we were coming and going there. To the Milkowska's barn, I knew how the property, how to come in, that the dog wouldn't know that I am there. Because they had a dog and he runs on a line, like attached, but he can run. I also knew that I can get something to eat, even if they don't know that I am there. Because they used to have little green pears they put on in the attic of the barn and to get ripe. And I used to eat this. If I had an emergency, I didn't have where to go. When I stayed with Milkowski, one day I got up from sleeping in the barn, and my mother said, what's the matter with your face? It was like, you know, half of my face was like paralyzed. And the worst thing was, I was drinking and it was leaking out. I couldn't keep anything liquid. I remember I was doing bada I was making. You know, you make bada, and I thought the cream comes on top. And I thought I'll take with the finger and take some and eat it. But as soon as I did this, it came out here. So she would know that I did it, so I couldn't do it anymore. And I couldn't do a lot of things. And I didn't know what it is. I couldn't go to a doctor because I'm Jewish, so I cannot use a doctor. So we just let it go. We didn't care. I didn't see myself. And even I would see myself, my mother saw, she said, what can we do? We couldn't do anything. So we just let it go. But the woman, Milkowska, she said to me, maybe if you lay down in the sun or put on some warm thing on your face, maybe it will go away. So I tried everything, but it took a long time till I got rid of it. And now I realize I had the palsy, Bell palsy. It's a sickness, but it went away. Imagine to be so many years and not to go to a doctor and not hygiene. You know, the hygiene wasn't good. I never washed my face, never washed my hands, nothing. People weren't too sick. You know why? Because you weren't together too much. There was like one by yourself. You don't get the sicknesses from another. Like if you have a cold, you have a cold, but nobody else will get. You wouldn't give. Nobody will give you because you sit by yourself. We stayed another few days there without the parents knowing. This Yaja, the daughter, she let us stay. She was a very good woman. She was 16. She's 16 years old. She was very nice. She told me, one Polish man, that she knew this guy. He is getting married. If we give him a suit, he would let you stay if my parents don't want you anymore. For a week or two, I don't remember. So my mother gave a suit, my father's suit, to those people that I told you before that we gave the furniture. So I said, oh, we can get a suit. And my mother said, okay, I'll go to town to this woman and I'll take the suit so we can stay. I looked at my mother. She looks like a real Jew. They kill her in a minute. She's dark and she has dark hair. And I said, you know what? You can't go. I'm going to go. And I put on a kerchief like the Polish people. She gave me the kerchief, this Mrs. Milkowska now. I want to show you how they wear. I'm 14 years old. So she said to me, and what will happen if they kill you? How will I get the kerchief back? I want to show you what kind of people, good people already. All right, so I said, don't worry, I'll watch, they wouldn't kill me. I came in the daytime barefoot and I kept my shoes in my hand because the Polish people, when they went into town from the village, they walked without shoes. They took the shoes in their hand, they had it. And before entering the town, they put on the shoes. If they went to church, they put on the shoes. I think they didn't want the shoes to get ruined. They always came barefoot. I learned to walk barefoot. It was a pleasure. It was a holiday when I went there, a Polish holiday. So I thought maybe they would be in church, there wouldn't be too many in the street. And I came, it was already in the afternoon. I saw a few Polish people that my father used to know standing at the corner. So I walked over and asked them, do you see any Germans here? And they didn't even answer me. But this was a very stupid thing to do because they could have called some Germans and they could kill me. I walk over to the house where she lives, this woman, and I see in the window her son name was Alosha, and I said to him, Alosha, tell your mother that I am here. And I was waiting, standing, which was very stupid of me because the Germans could have come and killed me like nothing. And I stayed there, and then I see Jabłoński, one of the policemen, the Polish policeman that worked with the Germans, standing in the window, and he does like this. He shakes his head like, oh, you're still alive? But he was somebody that knew my parents, so he didn't do anything to me. But I was so scared that I didn't go in already to ask for the suit, but I went back to the outskirts of the town, and I knew somebody there. Ruszkiewiczowa, I think her name was. And I came in and I said, I'm going to this and this woman, she has our suit and I want to take it. Can I stay here for overnight just, and I'll go in the morning? She was nice too. She says, go on the attic. She put me there and she says, okay, and I'll tell you when you should go. She had a beautiful daughter, and the Germans used to come there. I could hear the Germans down in the house when I was in the attic there. But I wasn't afraid because she would not give me out to the German. She was a very nice lady. And in the morning, she told me, you go now. Now it's a good time. I went and I came in to her. She opened the door and I see all our things our bedroom, our dining room, everything. And I said to her, Pani Gorbachova, give me the suit. We can stay for 2 weeks for this suit. She didn't say anything. Right away, she took out the suit. It was a rainy day. I put on the vest. My father had a suit with a vest. I put on the vest, I put on the jacket, and the pants I kept in my hand, and I had this big kerchief, big one. It covered. And I said, thank you. She said to me, if they catch you, the Germans, don't tell them where you got it. All right, it's normal maybe, but you know, you don't tell a kid that they'll catch me. And I go back to this woman who let me stay over just overnight. And her son was there, such a nice man. He said, sit down, I'll make you breakfast. And he gave me the first time, I sat at a table with a chair, like a human being, and had breakfast there. I told him I have to go to Milkovice, back to where my mother is and my sister. So he showed me and he says, you just go straight. And he even took me a little way on the road to show me. But I go on the road, I come to like a crossroad. I take a look from the left. There is 3 or 4 Germans on horses. Oh, what do you do? And this was a rainy day. I didn't see anybody walking, so it's suspicious. So what do I do? And this, and on the right side, this was the last house in this village before I go to the next village, and they'll be suspicious. So I just took a right, and I went there in the greenery. This was already summertime. I went there, and I sat there, but it was poison ivy there. I came out, I had like, you know, like I was all over with this. It was terrible. But the man, you know, the Polish man who lived in this house, I knew him too, because he used to come to my father to get food when my father worked for the Russians. And he said, I saw you coming in, but I didn't. And so I said, where are the Germans now that were here on the horses? He said, they went to the head of the village, and they drink there, they eat, don't worry, you can go now. And from there, I went straight to where my mother and my sister was, and I brought the suit. And we stayed for the suit the 2 weeks. But after the suit, it's again problems. We can't stay again. So we separated again. And my mother said, I'll go from here, I'll go here with Dorothy. And I went myself. One day in the summer, it was beautiful out, and I was hiding in the wheat, in the field of wheat. And all of a sudden started to pour and thunder and lightning like it was next to me. And I always in my life was afraid of lightning. So I just got up and wanted to get out of there. But a little boy, a nice little Polish boy, said to me, go down, the Germans are over there. I looked and I saw them on horses riding. So I got petrified and I went back down to the woods. I stayed with one family, the Christian. They told me, if you say the prayer every night, maybe I'll take you to my priest and he converts you. You'll become a Catholic. So I said, okay, I'll say the prayer. And I said the prayer. I still remember it. W imię Ojca i Syna i Ducha Świętego. Amen. Ojcze nasz, który jest w niebie, święci imię Twoje. Bądź wola Twoja, przyjdź królestwo Twoje. Chleba naszego powszedniego daj nam dziś. Odpuść nam nasze winy, jako i my odpuszczamy naszym winowajcom. Nie wódź nas na pokuszenie, ale nas zbaw od złego. Amen. Zdrowaś Maryjo, łaskiś pełna, błogosławiony owoc żywota Twego, Jezus. And she also, the same woman gave me Jesus and Mary on a little chain and told me, you have to wear it, will be lucky. If nothing would help, if you have a grandfather or a great-grandfather who was Jewish, you are Catholic, you cannot survive. You know, nobody wanted us to stay sometimes I don't blame them. They didn't want us to stay for a long time. A little bit, I had luck. My mother always said, you have luck. But as soon as I brought my mother and sister, they told us all to go. They said it's too many people to hide. If the Germans, we see the Germans coming to the house, you could run this way. You know, you could go in the fields or you could go in the woods. One person, you can do it, but 3 people, you cannot do it. And my cousin, I didn't know at this time where she is, but eventually I found her too. Because it was a certain amount of villages that we were, everybody was, because not every village was good people. This woman used to say, this is a good village, this is a bad village. We didn't know where my mother and my sister is and Esther is. We didn't know exactly, but we knew the neighborhood more or less where they are. And once I wanted to see them, so I went near a barn that I thought this where they sleeping tonight. And I started to say, Ma, Ma, Ma. Nobody answered, so I knew I'm wrong. And this was a stupid thing too, because they could catch me and kill me. The Polish people could do it, not the Germans. The Germans didn't go at night. We were safe at night because they didn't go at night. And then it was too late already, soon will be daytime. So I went back where I came from a different house that they let me stay. I had hundreds of houses where I stayed. My mother and my sister had their own trouble hiding, like every other Jew. And they were hiding in a barn that was a hole in the ground, and when you went in there, you have to cover yourself with wooden planks. One day, they heard the Germans talking there, and they heard the Germans moving a wagon out, so they knew that they're looking for Jews. And there was a hole in the ground that could be seen from outside. The hot air from the inside was coming out to the outside, and my mother realized this, and she was afraid if the Germans passed by at this point, they'll feel something and they'll look. So she was standing and holding a rag over the hole, and sure enough, the Germans didn't see it. It was luck, pure luck. My mother once, my sister, they went like from place to place, and on the way a Polish person met them, and he wanted to take them probably to the Germans or something. My mother kissed his legs and begged him, please, let us go, let us leave. And he let them go. My sister Dorothy told me that once she and my mother was sitting in the fields, hiding in the wheat. It was summertime, it was a hot day, and they were very dirty. They didn't take a bath a long time. And all of a sudden it started to rain. So my mother had the idea to take off the clothes and stay in the rain, and will get clean this way. So they did, but instead of raining, it started to hail, and they had to run fast and get dressed. We had to hide in the daytime because we couldn't go in the daytime. And at night, we used to go for food and whatever. I don't know if we needed some information because we didn't know how to go in the villages. We didn't know where we're going. We didn't know where to go, who to ask anything, how to get food. But we started to go from house to house. You learn those things. My mother, at night, she was going from house to house in the village, and she used to beg the people for a piece of bread. She used to have an apron that she was wearing. If they gave it to her, she put it in the apron, and then she brought it to us, and we had what to eat. You had to go to other places, and you sneak in. I used to knock in the door. Some people gave me to eat. If it's one person, sometimes I was sitting in the closet, a whole day in the closet, at night got out. See, I looked always for a house that's one house. You call it a kolonia in Polish. You know, not a village with houses, just one house and a lot of land. This was the best thing. So this was where I used to go. Sometimes I sleep in a house. Not that it's smart, it's stupid, but I wanted to sleep in a house, not in the barn anymore, with the stink from the cows and the pigs and everything. Terrible. We took chances and we stayed in the field. My mother had a blanket that when it was pouring rain and we stayed in the field, she used to put it over. She says it's a magic carpet, like it didn't let you get wet. Every day and every minute and every hour it's a struggle to survive. Every minute. Because you didn't know. You stayed there, the Germans could come and he could be scared and tell. You can't help it. I was young, I didn't realize that it's dangerous because some people were not good and they took you to the Germans and that's it would be the end. When you have to go from day to day, from house to house, you eventually go to a bad house. But I was lucky. Like somebody told me, oh, good you didn't go to this one. And there were two houses. I went to this house. Oh, this one is a bad man. A lot of has to do with luck. I knocked at the door and it was the good people. And they gave me to eat and this is how it was going on because we had no more a hiding place. I was a nervous child, but when the Germans started to kill the Jewish people and you have to fight for your life and you had to look how to survive, I wasn't nervous anymore. I knocked in any door just to get a piece of food, but I still didn't like to get the food for nothing. I carried around with me 2 marks, German money, and whenever I came to a house to ask for something to eat, a piece of bread, I couldn't say give me. I came in, started to cry, and I said, could you sell me for 2 marks bread? So they gave me a piece of bread, never took the 2 marks. I had it till after the war. I don't know what I did with it. I think about it. You didn't know where you're going. You didn't know where you're hungry, you're cold. I am thinking about it. It's just terrible. It was a very cold day. I went to a barn. I walked into the barn. Nobody stays at night. It was late at night. Nobody watches the barns there. And I went in and I lay down. Maybe I can sleep a little. I couldn't sleep. This is how cold it was. My back. And I wore a coat and everything. I was cold. So I said, let me get out. I got out and I walked in the village and I saw this ladder standing outside, connected to an attic upstairs, like to go. So I walked up on this ladder and I see a cover and a pillow there. Oh, I said, oh, that's good. I lay down and I fell asleep probably. And when I got up, it was already morning. So I take a look, not far from me. There's a man sleeping, he was sleeping there too, and with a cover and with a pillow. And he slept there. So I just sneaked out fast and ran away from there. I was so scared. He was a Polishman. They used to have help, and the help slept in places like this. It was very bad for girls, very bad. It was a lot of raping at this time by the Polish, by the Russian POWs, anybody who wanted. There was no police. If you had no luck, this is what you wound up with. or if you walked around too much. The best thing was to be in one place, to hide. There were Russian soldiers who became POWs, and they ran away from the Germans, from the camps of the POW, and they used to hide also in the woods and in the villages where some of the Jews were. Some of them were good, but some of them were dangerous, and we Jews had to be very careful of them. I went with Esther, my cousin, and I stayed there on the attic one day with her, one night. And then I said, no, I have to go to Yorshikova, or I don't remember which. And good that I went out. You know what happened? Soviets, Russian POWs, they came to this place. Esther was there, and another woman, she was a little cuckoo, a Polish woman. She wasn't normal. And the Soviets came up on the roof, and they saw Esther, so they touched her. No, she didn't have anything yet, so no. And they went, if I would be there, they would rape me. I was lucky. Her name was Helen, my mother told me later, and she was raped by 7 POWs. So my mother heard somebody by the name Helen. So she thought it's me. She was so scared. Huh? Another time I was walking to the village Naroyki. I had to go to this place because my father did good for somebody from there. So I was looking for this person. And I was walking. Then I saw a man walking by himself. So I thought to myself, if I go next to him, even if the Germans come, they would think that I am with him. He was Polish. It was bright daylight. They wouldn't even think that I'm Jewish. So I came over and we walked for a while. He asked me where I'm going. I told him where I'm going, which village. When we came near the village, it was summertime, so it was still light. So he said to me, you can't go in now to the village, it's light, which is normal. So he said, you know what, you can hide in the woods. You can stay there till another hour or two, will get dark already. I can stay with you there. So I knew that something is wrong. So I said, no, you don't have to stay with me, I'll wait myself. And he didn't insist, he left, and I stayed, and then I went to this village. This is little things that happen. And you know what my mother had? My mother and my sister were hiding in a barn. I don't remember the village name. And I came to my mother to tell her that I'm going to Milkowski to get the suit that we needed. So I just came in for a minute and I told her and I walked out. But there was a POW hiding there with those people. He was working for them. And this POW, the Russian, he saw that I walked in, but he didn't see me walking out. So at night, he came to my mother and he said, where is the girl that I saw walking in? So my mother said, look, there is nobody here. Just me and my little girl. So he said, all right, I'll take you. And if you don't go with me, I have 10 other friends. And if I call them, they'll come and you'll have 10 people raping you. She did the right thing, smart. She said, okay, I go with you, but wait, I'll be right back. I just want to take my little girl down so she doesn't see anything what's going on. I'll take her down and I'll come right back, so stay here. She told me a few times, stay here. And the two of them jumped down. They didn't go on the ladder anymore. They just jumped down on the cow. And they get off and they ran a whole night. And we found out from the woman that he worked for, the POW, that he waited a whole night there. Every hour was a day, every day was a month, and every month was a year. And it was very hard to survive. It was danger everywhere, from the Russians, from the Germans, from the AK. We have to watch for the people in the villages, and so on, and so on, and so on. It looked like nobody cared for us. We didn't have anybody who was standing on our side until one day my luck changed. I met somebody by the name of Harry Shabbos. He was the leader of a Jewish partisan group who took revenge if you did something wrong to a Jew. And he changed our lives.